Well, welcome everybody to another Customer Spotlight. We are super pumped and excited. Today we're joined with Rima and Chris from Uncle Toad's Media. So welcome Chris and welcome Rima.
Hi, good to be here.
Hi.
Thanks guys for taking a minute and just or 60 minutes and being with us here for a few. These Customer Spotlights, for anyone who's joining or going to be watching these later, these are really just kind of something that we're trying to offer up for the community, for the production community as a whole, which is, there's a lot of craziness going on out there. We can't control that, but what we can do is create stage and platforms for our own customers and people who are doing really, really cool and amazing stuff in our industry, for them to kind of share it and for us to learn from our peers. And so that's really what today is all about. And I'm excited because Uncle Toad's Media Group is a fun kind of blend customer of a couple of different spaces. You know, traditionally when people are doing production, they're kind of, it can be easy to pigeonhole yourself into, you know, I only do game or sports broadcast, or I only do, corporate, traditional ballroom kind of production, or I'm doing esports, which is fun and exciting, but even that's kind of got its own little routine. And so just talking with Chris and Rima on the front end of the call really was learned a lot more about how they're using Shoflo, but then also just what they do and their kind of formula for how they kind of bring value for their customers and kind of pull off some cool production. So I'm excited for them to tell you a little bit about their journey. Before we get going on that, we've got JP Chat, as always, in sort of our chat moderator. So if you have any specific questions for Chris or for Rima as we go through this, either A, how they approach production or things that you're seeing or hearing that might bring it up, go ahead and send those questions in live, and JP will be kind of capturing those and sending those to us. And then also if you have any questions about their rundown or specifically how they approach Shoflo, send those in ahead of time as well. And then just one more before we get going, I'd like to just kind of know who our audience is. So I'm going to launch a poll, and if anyone on the call doesn't mind joining and just kind of voting for us, what kind of production workflow are you doing? Is it more so the corporate event production, sports, live event broadcast, kind of what is that type of workflow that you guys are doing? Helps us kind of adapt our conversation to the audience that's actually coming in. Cool, we'll do 3, 2, 1sies, and then I'll share those. So cool, actually, this is good, Rima, for you and for Chris. A lot of people more in the traditional corporate event production, that event agency type stuff. But then honestly, a good blend of everything. So that's fun. All right, cool. And then the last one I'll do is really just kind of what is your role? Are you more of the show caller? Are you more of the, producer, director? Kind of what's your role that you usually fulfill in during these productions? Cool. Do a little 3, 2sies, 1skis, and we're done. Awesome. I'll share them real quick so we can see them and then we can get going. A lot of producers. Awesome. So there you go. That'll really be helpful too as we're walking through this. All right. The dishes are done. Now we can move on to the fun part. All right. So Chris, creative director, Uncle Toad's Media. Where did it all come from? What are we talking about? When we say Uncle Toad's Media Group, what does that actually mean? And where did this even all come from originally?
Yeah, good question. I guess it means a lot of things. First, thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to talk with everyone and share a little bit about us. Uncle Toad's Media Group is really a blend of an agency, a production company, and just an all-around tool that brands and agencies and other people can use to help get their ideas off and do some really killer live broadcasting, as well as content, a ton of other things. We started, over a decade ago in the surf world, doing surf webcasts. Traditionally surf webcasts back in the day became really popular just because surfing was a global sport. It was a way for the international community to tune in, and it didn't quite have the popularity it has today, so it wasn't always on TV. So we started doing the Vans Triple Crown of Surfing on the North Shore of Hawaii in 2007, so a good time ago. Throughout the years, surfing just kept developing and growing, and so did our company. Nowadays, we've moved much beyond surfing, and we've done major surfing events like the U.S. Open of Surfing that you have here. And encompasses skateboarding, BMX. We've done concerts there. and then really taken the show on the road, and done major world tour events. Like here we have the Vulcan Fiji Pro. This was a challenging event. It's a very remote island in Fiji. The wave itself is 2 miles out to sea. And, you know, we accomplished what seemed like an insurmountable task of doing a live broadcast from the middle of the ocean. So you can see there our tower with our 2 cameras. Yep. We have cameras in the water shooting, 20-foot waves. That's the cinematographer Larry Haynes on the back of a jet ski, doing what he does best, but really bringing the viewers into an untraditional space. And I think that's really what we've learned through surfing is kind of how to do broadcasting, but also how fun it can be to do challenging shows. And, we've evolved much out of surfing. Surfing is still in our portfolio, but we do all sorts of things nowadays. And really working with agencies and brands, trying to communicate, stories that their customers or their audience want to hear, and doing things untraditionally. I think that's kind of the way we always approach things is, what's going to make us stand out? What's going to make our show a little bit different in the way we can tell that story and capture that story. So, it's just been a trip and a wild ride through it all. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, actually, before I go on to this next one, so you and I were talking about earlier on the front end, but what I loved about this is that, so basically this camera, the camera guy here has to then, he's so far offshore that he actually has to transmit this to like a tower that then has to transmit it back to, I guess, the island. Is that what it was? Is that
yeah. So we're daisy chaining multiple different wireless links just to get the signal off. So we had several boats in the water, and then the jet ski. So we had 3 signals in the water that all went to this tower where we had 2 more long lens cameras. All those got shaded and cut there, or not cut, but like shaded and kind of compressed, and then transmitted to the island of Tavarua, which is about 2 miles away from this tower. The island itself is tiny. You can walk around the whole thing in 30 minutes. But in the tower there, or on the island, we had our whole control room. We built it in the gym of the resort. So in the gymnasium, we had our director and all the normal tools that you have for a broadcast, and we cut the show there. And then it would hit a satellite and go to space, and then, out to the world. So it was a challenging event. And I think it's a good point to describe like what our company does. We take on really challenging things, not knowing how to do them at first, and just kind of diving head in and reaching out and learning and educating ourselves and just trying to encompass everything and get everything we know out there and into the world.
So, and I love that. So then you got the surfing side that you guys have done, and then you really almost hit a good amount of these like kind of action sports, or what would you kind of call that category where it's
trying to describe it's always hard. I try and say like culturally relevant events. Now there's all sorts of cultures, but it's like really youth culture, and just like alternative cultures, I guess you could say, like skateboarding, surfing, a lot of music, but just, fun things that like are just fun to be there working as they are to watch it. Things that, just maybe like a bit of counterculture-ish. And I think that allows us to be more creative in the way we capture it, like here you have the BMXer, doing an air over a little cop car, but it's a fisheye lens on a wireless backpack with a guy running around. That's pretty untraditional in your normal stick and ball sort of sports. So it makes it fun because the coverage is a little more dynamic, and the story, we get to adapt our storytelling for each event. So we're not pigeonholing ourselves. The way we capture surf is not the way we're going to capture skateboarding. And, they're different audiences as well. So, we try and adapt and tell those stories as honestly and faithfully as we can.
So then you guys have done both like that, but then you've also done kind of like stage festival type stuff. I think is this Warped Tour here?
Yeah. So, that leads us into like, cultures relevant in sport, but also things like music and we've done fashion and tons of agency work. So we kind of now have breached just traditional sport or even like untraditional sport. And now it's kind of like, how can we take that same ethos and philosophy into things like music? And just, nowadays everyone's live on social. It's kind of the place to be. And so we take that work to agencies that want to market their brands or their partners on a live environment. And so we can help, bring those things to life for them. Like this is an example here you have. This is a job we did for Whiting and Kennedy up in Portland, where they had a toy robot, it was a 2-inch tall robot that they wanted to do a live experience with on social. So we helped them basically do a live broadcast of a miniature object. And so we created some special camera systems and did a traditional broadcast, but with very untraditional tools in a very untraditional environment. So it's those fun, challenging jobs. So here you can see, we did little point of view cameras on gimbals with sticks and a daisy chain of adapters and tools and cameramen to do basically, it's kind of like a stop motion or something, but it's a live experience. And we had a ton of fun doing this. And this is, the type of challenges that we like to do as a company.
And what would be an audience in this perspective? Like, is this a live stream or broadcast out to Twitch, or where's this going to?
Yeah, in this instance, this was on Reddit. It was Reddit's first ever live broadcast dedicated just for Reddit. So it was a part of the marketing plan with the agency. Users on Reddit got to vote on what the robot did. So it was kind of like a choose your own adventure. So nice. The users of Reddit got to direct the show. We had a ton of little robots with controllers. So, you can't really see here, but the set is designed. Each one of these little doors is a subreddit. So there's, what could go wrong? There's shitty robots. There's meme economy. So the users of Reddit had to go on an adventure to find these objects to save the robot. So not only did we capture a miniaturized event, but we helped them develop a way that users could click a live interface on the video, and then we could get those poll results, and then we could actually control the robot and what he did. So it was a bit of pre-scripting, but a lot of we weren't sure where we were going to go at any time. So we needed to be nimble and it was super fun. And, it's fun working with agencies like this that really don't know what they're going to be doing for a live environment, and them coming with very challenging things, and then us trying to realize those ideas in a challenging environment.
That's awesome. And then this one, obviously everybody knows who it is, but or Old Spice all day long. But talk about this project. This one looks like it had some fun while you were shooting it.
Yeah, so a very similar concept, also same agency, Whiting and Kennedy. Terry Crews here, he was a big part of their ad campaigns, and they wanted to do something a little different. So we had a live broadcast with Terry, and the users, again, on Facebook got to vote by, either liking or loving a subject at a time, what Terry did. So he did it for a couple hours. He taught us how to make bouquets of flowers, and he taught us how to make smoothies. And he basically was teaching how to be a contemporary man. And it was just great working with Terry and, an environment like that. And it's just fun too, coming up with fun ways to utilize things like social to do something like a live commercial campaign. And a lot of agencies and even actors like Terry aren't used to working in an environment where it's like a big live broadcast just for, there's no second takes. There's, you can't script out everything. So being prepared is definitely, where you need to be, but you also have to be able to adapt. So that's part of the fun.
Well, okay, so then Rima, if that's on the creative and the producing side and all that kind of stuff, I think you're really coming in on the stage and sort of directing and calling the shows and things like that. So out of all the photos you guys sent over, it seems like you guys are always kind of doing, or you like to go into more of the control room or production truck type setup. Is that kind of like you prefer that as a method or that approach?
Yeah. So I'm a live producer for Uncle Toad's. I've been working with them for over 10 years. Chris and I have been working together a really long time, and our team has an awesome dynamic, but I'm addicted to the live environment, and I love being on the front bench. And so I, as a live producer, work a lot with Chris and Jordan, you know, with the clients, creating these shows for them. And then it's my job to basically implement, you know, their vision and basically just make sure that we're running the show according to whatever the plan is in the truck.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then so obviously a lot of people have seen what's going on inside the broadcast truck. I think I can even spot Shoflo in a couple of these photos, but looks like there's a printout down here. It's on this screen here. So how are you guys kind of generally approaching using Shoflo? Like when does it insert itself into the production workflow with you, Rima?
So we've been working with Shoflo for several years now, and you know, over time it's kind of evolved, and we've really enjoyed the evolution of bringing it into our trucks. As you see here, I'm sitting there on the front bench, and I have it on my computer. So I write the shows, and then we pipe that into our monitor wall, making it so our director, TD, who's ever on the front bench there, as well as our backbench guys, they can kind of see the show and they can follow my show call. And then we have other team members like our audio engineers and people outside of the truck, even Chris. They'll essentially follow my show call through the app. Or if they're even, well, when they're on the guest pass, they don't follow the live call. But it's a great way to integrate the show throughout with all of our different team members, including those that are far away. So in this particular instance, we're in China, and there's, you know, people that can follow my live show call wherever.
And then so like for this one right here, Rima, with China, are you kind of building that in the days leading up to it? Or are you guys doing that like weeks ahead? When does Shoflo kind of get brought into your building workflow?
Honestly, we start Shoflo months and months ahead of time. So It's a great way to just start any sort of a platform, whether it's continuing or evolving events. So, you know, when we've been doing skateboarding events with this company Vans, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar about, we do the Vans Pro Skate Park series, and we've been working with them for, Chris, 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, forever as far as their events are concerned. But yeah, the park series is relatively new in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and basically Vans came to Uncle Toad's and said, hey, you know, we're gonna build this park series, and Uncle Toad's was really integral in co-building the series with them, in the sense of, you know, the Vans if you want to go back to the backside, this is Van Skateboarding. They wanted to build this event, and so, you know, Uncle Toad's kind of co-wrote the show. So they said, okay, we want the format of the skateboarding event to be like this, and this. And then we'd say, okay, the timing of the show should be like this. And so we started Shoflo really, really early on, and we're kind of sharing that with the client. And over the course of 4 years, we've built this really great structure for the events and the timing of the event, and then blending it into a broadcast format.
And that's an important part I want to kind of piggyback. You know, Shoflo almost becomes one of the first processes in what we do for our clients. It really helps them realize, what are we going to be doing? You know, a lot of people come with broad strokes, especially in sport, like how the competition's going to work. What they can't quite visualize is how that comes alive in a broadcast. And that's like, where are the replays, what graphics? And it also helps us understand what inventory we need when we start pre-production in our graphics. You know, what sort of audio, how many music tracks do we need? All those things, when we have them on paper to start with, it really makes the whole pre-production process a lot easier. And of course, it's a living document all the way into, you know, this moment, into the middle of the show. So it's great to have that tool and to be organized as far as storytelling goes, because that's really what we are. We're storytellers. So, you know, we have to have the script or the recipe before we really get to work.
Yeah, I love that. And then, Chris, how many events in general or projects are you guys kind of working on in a given calendar year? Obviously, before some of the more recent events, but what would be a normal like workload on the year?
You know, Shoflo, it's sorry, my dog just joined.
I loved it.
Typical live event.
Yeah.
Get out of here, bud. Sorry, repeat the question.
I was just curious, more like how many, obviously not, and it's all changing right now, but what was the normal workload for you guys in terms of projects that, you know, Uncle Toad's would work on in a given year?
Yeah, so, you know, the Vans Park series, you know, I guess this year is going to throw a curveball into that question, but in a given year, like, so Vans Park Series fluctuates between, 5 events a year, 6 events a year, depending on any given year. It's evolving since it's a new tour. But then we do several surf events a year. We do a bunch of one-offs. I think that's where we have a lot of fun, is like agency one-offs.
Yeah.
And those are kind of unpredictable, but Shoflo will get integrated into almost every shoot we do. And so it's used quite heavily. And a lot of the shows that we do, we need multiple scripts and multiple things. So, it's hard to say any given year. This year's been a change. We were lucky to have a bunch of jobs at the start, but now we're just kind of sitting around like everyone.
It's crazy. Rima, it looks like you're having fun in this one. You've got Shoflo up. What event was this one? This was the tiny.
That was the Cosmo Lost in Reddit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to speak to this slide and many others, one thing that's amazing about our industry, and also I feel about our company, is that by nature, we're, like Chris said, counterculture people. We're a little bit, I don't know, you could maybe consider us odd, but we're also lovers of a lot of the counterculture sports and the music, action sports, and even fun things like this where we're lost in Reddit. We like to have a lot of fun on our shoots. So we're extremely professional and we take our job so seriously, but at the same time, we have fun being serious.
And I can see Shoflo up here in the upper left corner, so it looks like you guys put it up in the control room, which is cool.
Yeah.
And just more kind of, this is actually a pretty sweet broadcast truck. Look at this. They got the ground effects on here. Look at that. Jeez.
Yeah, so not only Shoflo there, and Chris spoke to this job, this was one of our crazy one-offs, like where it was just dreamed up and somehow it all came together in an amazing way. We were lucky enough to have this amazing 4K truck called the Columbus with Gearhouse. But what was really cool about this job is that it was very fluid. So we had a plan. We knew that Cosmo could go into one of these 6 subreddits, but we didn't know how the audience was going to interact. So it was fully live, scripted, but at the same time, there were so many parts that were unscripted. We didn't know if Cosmo was going to go here or there. So we had all these plans, how to execute what the audience would choose. But that being said, we didn't know what order it was going to go in and when he was going to complete, or if he was going to complete the task. And so what is really cool about Shoflo is that at any given time, you can go in there, you can change your show call. So there's a lot of traditional people that are like, okay, commercial at this point, you got 15 seconds here, 30 seconds there, blah, blah, blah. But in this case, it was really fluid. So there was like a lot of like jumping around and like quick on the fly changes. And that's what's amazing about having Shoflo being totally digital, as well as having the ability to blast out the technology to whoever is either on the app or watching the screens on the multi-views.
Well, and when we get into the software too, I want to walk through some of that stuff with you in terms of how you kind of format it and reorder things as you go. But just get into a couple more slides real quick, and then we'll switch in the software. But obviously, we understand it. Everyone's got their own approach. So it looks like you guys are clearly doing printouts here as well too. Is this more like replay here, or what's going on?
That's actually one of our graphics developers. So, he's working. This is one of our, Chris, you might want to speak to this about developing graphics for Vans, specifically for the Park Series.
Yeah, so we have our own proprietary scoring system that we developed for the Park Series. So here we're in China, and we were running simultaneous Chinese or Mandarin graphics. So here we have a graphics operator next to our English ears on the corner on the left. In between them, you have Shoflo, and then on the right, you have the Mandarin graphics operator. So we use a ton of different specialized products for the Park Series. We're international for all the stops, so a lot of our equipment needs to travel well and be easily replaced, and also cost effective and efficient. So this is an easy tool for us to use and do X amount of languages graphically with.
That's cool. That's fun. You guys rolled your own scoring system. Well, cool. And then it looks like this is your team. Just kind of shout out to the greater production crew and who pulls this stuff off. But do you guys try to work with a lot of the same producing crew as much as you can? Or I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I mean, on tours, we'll try and have the same team do the whole tour. Of course, people's schedules, availabilities fluctuate, but we like the core central team is essential. Our production management, producers like Rima, Jordan, our executive producer, obviously. And, you know, we've been establishing relationships with a lot of people for a long time, but we also, you know, each job is different and there's different people for each kind of specialty. So, you know, our surf cinematographers are going to be a lot different than our skateboarding ones. So, yeah, but you know, when we do a tour with 6 stops international, it's nice to know everybody that you're traveling with and going into these, you know, challenging situations.
Yeah. Well, cool. As we switch into the kind of moving into more of the software side, a good question that came in, I want to bring it up. It's actually from, looks like it, so it's from Bradley Davis. At LinkedIn, our media production live team is starting to utilize Shoflo. Is there a way to manage day-to-day scheduled events? So that's an interesting question. First of all, hi, Bradley and LinkedIn team. We're excited about you guys. So yeah, you know, are you guys using it on any level to like represent your upcoming schedule for your crew or anything like that? Or is it mostly just rundown kind of management that you guys are using there, Chris?
Yeah, so we use Shoflo mainly for the rundown. It's such a great tool compared to using like, you know, a Google spreadsheet or something like that where something can break easily or anything like that. You know, we do multiple day events. So we'll stack, you know, Rima can speak to this, but like, you know, some festivals we do, there's skateboarding one day, BMX the next day, music the next day. So we can kind of schedule things out that way. With crewing and everything like that, our production management just kind of handles that on their own. And that's probably more in the Google spreadsheet world. But Rima, you could probably speak to like how we stack multi-day events.
Yeah, so regardless of whatever the genre is, we've done skateboarding and BMX, you know, like, and music, all in one little event, like the US Open of Surfing is a great example.
Mm-hmm.
We did this BMX Pro Cup for Vans. And then we also did this thing called the Rebel Jam. So what I'll do also is I'll have other shows to cross-reference, you know, like I put in my Vans Pool Party show in there so that way if I need to like quickly figure out like what, because the Vans Rebel Jam and the BMX Pro Cup were these completely unique one-off events. They had never been done. The format was unique. The way we shot it was unique. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll throw an extra show so I can, and I also have the VPS to reference too. So it's like, how did we, you know, do this previous event that we've done 10 years in a row? Okay, we did it like this. How can we apply that to what's going on in the Pro Cup or the Rebel Jam or whatever? But yeah, I mean, if you want to talk more about how we write the shows.
Yeah. So, and then I'm just curious real quick on that. Are you copying shows from one event to another? Is that what you kind of do?
I do for sure. I definitely like reference previous shows as well. I love Shoflo for so many reasons, but I do love the fact that you can bulk copy paste, and you can take an old expired show from like 3 or 4 years ago, pull it up, and you know, like whether it's how you ended up, you know, writing a post show and that you think it's gonna work well for this particular instance or whatever, you can copy paste and really quickly make changes. You can do bulk edits, which I love. So like color coordinating and all that stuff, you can do multiples at a time. Yeah, it's a really great tool.
Well, okay, so let's jump into the software and just kind of like get our bearings on what we're looking at here. So Rima, I think, so Rima's really the one who does a lot of the building of the Shoflo, and I guess you're doing that upline early, you know, and Chris is in there, and we'll talk more about who all the audiences are. But even just like when I look at your rundowns here, Rima, clearly you love colors, and I love that you love colors. I think it's one of the best ways to communicate things. So walk me through it. Like what's kind of like your approach? What have you identified as kind of like a good color code, you might say, to use inside of Shoflo?
Yeah, when we started with Shoflo years back already, it was like a little bit more limited with your colors. So it's like you got like the basic colors of the rainbow. And early on, I'm an artist, and I'm creative. I love color. So, you know, the more color for me, I was like, yes, this is great. But what we did was I started out with red being for EVS, and this is before you had shades of red. You just got like one color red. And then I went, okay, yellow's graphics. Green is anything that's like host topics. Purple is commercial blocks. Blue is our sideline. So anytime we'd go down to the pitch reporter or the sideline. And then, yeah, yellow is all graphics. And then then Shoflo came out. Shoflo's really great about coming up with these like amazing updates. And then they said, okay, here's your whole color spectrum. You can like change the shades of it. So yeah, there it is. It's the beautiful. So I went like, this is amazing. So many colors.
So has that been helpful for your crew? Do you walk or try to like help your crew understand what colors mean?
Yeah, whether you're handing out the paper copies, which we are constantly, I mean, we're, as surfers, skateboarders, action sports enthusiasts, like we actually grew up doing the sports, and that's like a part of our love and why we're in this particular part of our industry. But so one thing is we're advocates for the earth. Like we're really passionate about the planet. And when you're a surfer, I mean, obviously you're in it, you're in the ocean, you're seeing all this stuff. So, I mean, one thing we really try to do is just be more cautious. One, I know this is a side note, but like making our crew members all bring reusable water bottles. But another part is saying, hey, let's try not to print out all these rundowns. Right. So you can't get everyone off of paper, and I can go off on a side rant about how certain people don't want to go off of their paper copies. But what's really cool is that through that whole writing process, when you're like making these changes, you're integrating with the client, event formats are changing or athletes are maybe dropping out and you quickly have to like cut something, they reshuffle the heat draw or whatever. We have this opportunity to do it all digitally and then, publish this all digitally. And then even up until the very last minute, until it's about to go live to show, you can at least avoid reprinting different copies. Because as we all know, these are super fluid and they change literally up until like that last 30 minutes going into the live show.
Absolutely. I've always said that too. I mean, we're not trying to, we do believe that there's different people and roles in production that have different comfort levels with going digital. And so I love that you guys as a group are forward leaning and believe and have an aim to try to change the minds of that. But either way, we give you the printout as an option. But even if we can say, hey, if you were going to do 17 versions over the course of 3 weeks, if we can get it down to 4 printed versions, we're happy to be able to have a result that we get to. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So then Rima, I love it. It's a beautiful script, obviously using the durations a lot. So you're really leaning into the auto time calculations where if you change a particular time to say, be 5 minutes and 30 seconds, that really ripples through. How have you seen timing been helpful for you guys in terms of either being more honest about, or your clients? I mean, how has timing kind of been a part of your workflow?
Well, timing is obviously critical for anyone doing a broadcast. Like if you're, going to a network and you have a certain time that you got to hit, obviously that's critical. In our sports, especially surfing, well, surfing is actually not as bad. Skateboarding, it can be such a fluctuation in the time. So you can have a skater goes to drop in for their 1 minute run and they fall in the first 10 seconds. And so then it's that just went to 10 seconds. And then you have a guy maybe who just did a 1 minute run, but then he's showboating and the audience is freaking out. And so he's doing extra stuff. And next thing you know, 2.5 minutes goes by. Or the skater sometimes just wants to sit there and just take it all in. And you're come on, let's go. Right. So, it's a real challenge to try to meet timing and we work with the clients and the event directors as well to try to match our time. And as we go through the events and we continue to develop, let's say for the park series, over the course of 4 years, we've been able to really get it streamlined to where we're not only trying to meet the event audience, because there's a venue audience there and they're, watching the show on the big screen. And then we have this TV audience as well, or webcast audience that we're trying to cater to. So yeah, the timing thing is really challenging, but Shoflo is awesome for that.
I mean, yeah, and timing, I mean, that's an important recipe from day one, from our clients, just understanding hey, we have this event or this project we want to do. They may not have a conceptual idea of how long that's really going to take.
Right.
So from day one, I mean, it dictates really what's capable within the slotted time we have. And then like Rima said, we're still doing some traditional broadcasts. We got to hit our commercials dead on so our partners can go to commercial. And so, keeping track of the time is probably one of the most essential reasons for having a rundown.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, if you were to reorder, if you're running behind time or whatever, and you need to float an element, things of that nature, that's kind of the idea. Are you guys, so Chris, I think, you guys are using Guest Pass. So who's kind of your audience? Who are you sharing Guest Pass with? And then how early on in the kind of production workflow will you make that link available to people?
Yeah, I mean, so when we start a project or we start talking about something, we have our calls with the clients. We get as much on paper as we can to figure out like, hey, what are we doing and what's the loose structure? But really, for people to start visualizing, we need to get this out to them as soon as possible. So we're talking months in advance. We'll write a show, Rima will write a show, and then we'll go back and forth and make sure internally this is kind of what we all want to do. And then we'll share the Guest Pass link right away with the client. We prefer that the client gets the Guest Pass because then there's not room for them to go and adjust stuff without consulting us. We like to be in control of our show. But yeah, we'll share the Guest Pass right away, and we just kind of let that go to whoever needs it. It's a great tool. I like it that it's kind of a view only. I like that you can kind of set it up and dictate what it's displaying, and it is really, this is what the main thing the client will see from our perspective.
And then will you just kind of send it out and say, hey, go ahead and bookmark this or something like that, and just keep referencing back to this as you need, throughout the coming weeks of pre-production? Okay.
Yeah. It's just a link that is living in all of our email exchanges regarding the topic with them. So it's really easy for them to share with their part. Usually our clients are reporting to their bosses and they need to share stuff, so they can easily print it, take it to whomever they want to share it with, or they can share the link. It's just a great tool and a real clean version to where they don't have to go in and understand how to edit a document or do anything. They're just getting a great, view of it.
And then Rima, you're the one who's actually like calling the show in the midst of it? Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah. So one thing that's really cool about Shoflo is that it's such a simple touch that you can just use the space bar to actively show call. So I don't know if you want to go ahead and select a show caller to track if you can on the, so you see that blue line there. So what's awesome is that as I show call, I'll have my communications panel on my headset. And so I'll be talking to whether it's talent, audio cues, whatever. I mean, I've done the gamut with all that, but it's just such an easy, simple, like space bar that it becomes an innate action. And it's cool because if you go down to like the rider runs, as soon as the next rider goes, you can kind of keep track of which rider's which. So you're like, is this rider number 4 or 5? And then, you can look up at the screen and you have Shoflo telling you which rider's going to drop next. Also, it's coming up. So yeah, I show call and actively run the rundown as well.
Cool. And then I had noticed, I think in your, let me see if I can pull it up actually, your images of in the control room, that you guys would have more of like the standard Shoflo table up there. And now, have you guys explored at all the display view? And is there any reason that wasn't something like, is that just not enough information? Or have you guys even looked at this as the option?
We haven't actually done it in a live show. Everyone's just kind of gotten used to the whole format that we run now. So yeah, we haven't actually given it a shot yet, but it's nice to see all the information. I feel that you can kind of go way ahead into the show and what's coming up. Like, okay, we do have a commercial coming up pretty soon, blah, blah, blah.
And there is ways that, as well, like this is being shared with through our monitor wall, which is, the audio's getting it, video's getting this, graphics is getting this. It does also go to our host set. So this is being distributed through all of our technical staff. So it is nice to have it detailed. So even if in audio you don't need to know what graphics is doing, it might be nice for them to reference. So we like having that info. I could definitely see a world where it'd be nice to have that display view go to like our hosts, where they just kind of need top line critical information. So, the ability for it to adapt is definitely huge in a production where, we could see uses for that for sure. Just like the presenting and the teleprompter stuff. Like, we dip into all the toys and features as needed. Yeah.
Are you guys Rima, are you using at all the item runtime clock during the actual, like, do you reference that at all? Okay, cool.
Yeah, very much so. So as I said before, the runtime is really critical to our shows, but it's also very fluid. So I always kind of keep an eye on not only our item runtime, but our overall runtime. And in the past, as we discussed in our earlier pre-call, how, keeping track of the overall show time, you have this full the over-under.
I do. Actually, what's funny? The irony of that is someone just came in. So there's an anonymous attendee asking about over and under clocks being run side by side or something like that, so the AD can actually gauge how over and under they are. So even though we're specifically looking at Uncle Toad stuff, I'm going to take the second actually to just show that off for a second. So that is a feature that we just released into an early beta. So you have to request it. So whoever is anonymous, I guess, reach out over the blue chat with us in Shoflo and we can turn that on. We'll be turning it on for Uncle Toad as well too. But that's demonstrated down here in the bottom where you can literally hit over, under, on. And then from there, we kind of open up this kind of over, under up here at the top. So if this particular duration right here was to say we'll just make it 10 seconds. And then the next one was to be 30 seconds to just kind of create an environment for this. If I track now this item runtime for 10 seconds, we are now counting right here underneath it. And then if I track out of that, for example, we're now 4 seconds under on the show. This one's now counting down 30 seconds. And if I was to track out of that, we can see we just bought back another 23 seconds. So 23 plus 4, and we're at that, well, whatever. And actually, since this one's 0, it's actually counting into the negatives. And so we can see if we go over your duration expectation, which in this case happened to be just 0, we'll start subtracting that, trying to give you a better sense on how heavy or light you are, or over or under you are in the show. So cool. Thanks for letting me share that, even though we had to detour away from your script. It seemed like it was well-timed with both your topic and then the question also being asked at the time. So, I think another question for Rima is, I'm just kind of switching back over to y'all's stuff. How has it been for your crew in terms of them just kind of like being comfortable even using Shoflo? I mean, obviously it's great when people have already used it before and they're able to come in and kind of be a little bit more comfortable with what that is. But if you've got like a brand new EVS operator, they've never used Shoflo before, they're kind of been doing it their way for years and years and years. How have you kind of found the, I guess, resistance or lack thereof in that type of situation?
Well, I think it's hard to get certain people off paper. Like we have an AD who's awesome. He tours the world with us, and he is helps me put in all of our EVS queue numbers and everything as we get closer to the show, once all the content is ingested. And he still always requests a paper copy. Same with the EVS operators, because it's like for them to get off on a computer and write something different. So I think that there's still that kind of I don't know if the paper will ever go away, but as we spoke to before, the fact that we're eliminating probably hundreds of 10, 20, 30 page shows, and we're saving expenses on ink and all that other stuff. I think, ultimately, if you're just printing that one last copy to them, that's great. And then we have other people, for some reason, audio engineers, when we turn them on to Shoflo, they absolutely love it, because I think for them, everything, every single finger has to be somewhere. Mm-hmm. And, if they have a screen and they can just look and just see that prompt, as opposed to flipping a page or writing notes or whatever, they just have, my show call that they can follow. So it seems like every audio engineer that we've invited into Shoflo has really loved it. And then of course, hosts and stuff, getting them used to it. But yeah, I'd say overall we've had a really nice reception, and overall a lot of people have kind of warmed up to it.
Yeah. Well, that's what we find is people, they kind of they don't want it to get in the way initially, but once they get set up and they're in their groove a little bit more and they're having fun, they'll start to peek over and see somebody else kind of with it open and go, how do I get my login, or whatever it is. So it always makes me happy when that happens.
One thing that's really cool too is that we have often field producers out in the field with talent, and a lot of them have said, it's so cool that we can just be on our phone and basically toggling between event stats and scoring and stuff, and Shoflo, and then be with their talent and doing live updates out in the field too. And that's another really cool way that Shoflo is kind of spread out.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, hey, Chris, switching gears here in the last kind of couple minutes, if you don't mind, like just speak to how are you guys kind of handling, what's happening right now, and what are you seeing if, in terms of like either for people who might be show crew out there who are kind of curious, they're sort of dependent on ultimately groups like yourselves establishing, the routine into what production looks like for the next 3 months, 6 months, 2 years. And I think no one's expecting it to go just Command Z and go back to what it was before. But anything you can share there for kind of people who are like curious, hey, if Chris is talking directly to the end-to-end meeting planner or the agency or the brand, what are you hearing and what are you seeing as the next couple months?
Yeah, it's obviously a difficult time. It's especially if you're like us and do event production work. It's really disheartening to see all those kind of disappearing, and it's a little bit scary as as it is for us all the way down the line. As it stands now, a lot of our summer work has gone and is changing, and that's keeping us just as busy as maybe if it stayed, because we need to adjust and adapt. Rima's been rewriting a lot of our shows because instead of it being a world tour, maybe it's going down to one stop, or, the shows are all kind of changing. I think that it's definitely an event that's going to be shaking up our industry for a long time. I can't tell you how many companies and budget proposals we've done for at-home broadcasts and webinars like this. It's really kind of changing a lot of what we do to be able to do stuff at home like this. It's pretty nuts. It's kind of cool to see all this stuff happening so fast. Yeah. So I think that in the long term, we're going to see like broadcasts kind of becoming more clever and less traditional, finding ways that like, hey, we can all do like a Zoom chat and it's just as entertaining as a big broadcast, but they're different. There's going to be a reason to have a big broadcast, and there's going to be a place for a Zoom chat. I think that hopefully things snap back quick. There's going to be an appetite to, go out and have events and see competition resume. I think live stuff is going to be more relevant than ever. If you can't do an in-person event, or maybe you can't pack an auditorium full of people, you could probably pack a couple people in and do a live broadcast. So we see things moving that direction as well, being able to take a big stage show and having live be a more important component than the actual physical audience. So, it's still the Wild West, I guess. So we're just trying to adapt like everyone else and hopefully we can get people back to work as soon as possible.
I think you guys are in a good position for it, though. I mean, I think a lot of, I've talked to quite a few event production companies, and they've been doing the same sort of song and dance for a very long time. And so they're having to almost they're on their heels, having to figure out how to think differently about production. And I can already tell just by our exchange today that you guys, that's already baked into your DNA, and so if there's any sort of brands or anything like out there looking for work, I think you guys are a good candidate for helping them solve some of these problems, because that is what it takes right now, is a little bit more of like thinking outside of the box, thinking about how you can use video conferencing, incorporate it into an existing larger production. And I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I think that it's not that the external event or the live component to an audience, like an audience side of it, is going to go away. But I think the responsibility to really make what you're working so hard on to produce for a stage accessible to the extended audience, whether that's over the interwebs or TV or network. And I think that's one of the things that'll come out of this. And you guys, it sounds like we're already doing that, for the last 10 years. So that's really cool. Well, hey, I just want to go ahead and say I really appreciate you guys taking a few minutes with us today. Again, if anybody is curious to learn more about Chris or Rima, their website is uncletoads.com. They're doing cool stuff, seriously. It's not, I really don't know how many other production companies are going to do everything from BMX to, to surfing. It's apparently to miniature little stuff. I'm not exactly sure what that was. Little robot streams to Reddit, but you guys are way ahead in terms of thinking differently. And so if anyone wants to learn more about them, go to uncletoads.com. And then we'll be making this webinar available as well too later. And anyone also who just was maybe observing or liked some of the things, the workflows that Rima or Chris talked about today, please come on over to just shoflo.tv, and you can use the little blue chat in the bottom right and go ahead and request it. We're making Shoflo widely available for you know, sort of sandbox trialing and things of that nature. So you know, feel free. I realize I got my dark theme on. That's funny. Feel free to come on over, use the blue chat, and request access, and we'd love to make that available. Also, if anyone liked the idea of that over/under, feel free to come in and request that as access as well too. And we're going to be turning that on for Rima and Chris as well. Well, cool. I appreciate you guys so very, very much. And Chris and Rima, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Be safe and have a wonderful day.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.